Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Human Services Pathways information session. My name is Mary Beulah, and I'm the director of Erie Together, which is a countywide movement that's heavily focused on helping more students become successful adults. As part of my role, I also facilitate the Erie County Career Pathways Alliance, which is a group of school districts, colleges and universities, workforce development organizations, and employers who are all working together to help students prepare for future careers. Our goal today is to help you understand opportunities in the human services pathway, which includes 5 industry clusters. Today, we are focusing on 4 of those, which include education and training, government, human services, and law. And we've assembled a great team of speakers today who will help you understand what students should do to prepare for careers in these fields, highlight some of the jobs that exist, and give you an opportunity to learn from their experience. Today's session will begin with speaker introductions, and we hope we'll have a presentation from Janet Anderson, who's a local workforce and economic development expert. We are also going to turn our presentation over to the panelists with a series of questions we've developed and others that you submit from the audience. If you have questions and you'd like to pose them to any one of the panelists, please put them in the chat and we will make sure that we raise them for you. Please understand that if you're here and you can hear us, your technology is working. And here are some additional things that will help ensure today's session goes well. First of all, panelists, please make sure your camera is turned on and your microphone is muted when you're not speaking. And remember to unmute yourself when you do speak. Schools and students, your cameras and microphones have been disabled. So when you want to ask questions, please type them into the chat, which we'll be monitoring. Again, if your question is directed to a specific panelist, please be sure to note that so we can direct it to the right person. Finally, we are recording today's session so we can provide the video to school districts afterwards so they can share it with more students and students can share it with their families. Okay, so that's it for the housekeeping and it's time to get started. So panelists, first of all, we're going to have you tell us your name, your position, a little bit about your background and what you do. I'm going to call on each of you individually and I'm going to start with John. John?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me this afternoon. My name is John DiMatteo, and I am the Director of Human Services for Erie County. The Department of Human Services is made up of several departments here: the Office of Children and Youth, the Office of Mental Health, Intellectual Disabilities, and the Office of Drug and Alcohol Abuse. We also provide services within the community around homelessness and early intervention services. I've been in my current role as the Director of Human Services and the Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities Administrator for about 8.5 years, and I've worked at the county for a little over 22 years. During that time, I've held a number of different positions. I think when I was counting them up before this, 5 different roles that I've had in the county in the last 22 years. So have a lot of experience. What I do on a daily basis varies to the day. So each day there are different things that come up, different challenges that we face. A lot of what we do is we provide some direct services here at the county, but we also do some funding of providers in the community that provide those services on our behalf. So with that, we have about 300-ish employees here at Erie County Department of Human Services. So I'll stop there and let the others introduce themselves.
Great, thank you, John. Leslie, you're up. You're muted, Leslie.
Hi, my name is Leslie Jones, and I work at the Erie County Drug and Alcohol Abuse, and I've been here approximately 9 years as a case manager. And I have other background in the military, and I achieved my bachelor's degree in social work at Mercyhurst University and my master's degree at Edinburgh University, and I also have my social work license. As a case manager, we do screenings. We screen the client to determine whether or not he needs an assessment or detox. And then we do assessments to determine what level of care the client is going to need. And then we do referrals. We refer the client to a provider, whatever level of care that may be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Leslie. Karen.
Good afternoon. I am speaking to you from the world of education. Just to give you some background about my pathway, I started out as a college student studying elementary education at Edinburgh University. And I graduated and went to work in my first role as a first grade teacher at Klein Elementary School in Harbor Creek. And I graduated from Harbor Creek, so it was really nice to be able to return to the school district in which I went to school. From there, I bloomed into a kindergarten position, and I taught kindergarten for 10 years. Then I moved into a reading specialist position at all of our elementary schools in the Harbor Creek School District. From there, I moved to Mill Creek School District as a reading coach, and I was able to work at all of the educational settings in the Mill Creek Township School District for a few years. And then I went to work at Edinburgh University as a professor. And from there, I've stuck my footing in the walls and halls of Edinburgh University, teaching undergraduate and graduate teachers. But I'm also the head of school at Erie Day School, an independent co-educational school here in the city of Erie that is a paid private school that children attend age 2 through grade 8.
Thanks, Karen. Art.
My name's Art Martinucci. I'm an attorney and a shareholder at the Quinn Law Firm, what people would generally refer to as a partner at the law firm. I've been in practice here for a little bit over 30 years at this point in time. I'm an Erie native, went to prep, went to Allegheny College, went to the University of Pittsburgh Law School, spent time with the National Guard, both enlisted and commissioned. My practice area is primarily labor and employment and civil rights litigation, although I do get into commercial cases and pretty much anything else that goes to court. The Quinn Law Firm has been around for 100 years. We've got a little bit over 100 years at this point in time. We've got a long tradition of providing legal services in the Erie area to both businesses and individuals, and nonprofits, as well as for-profit entities, governments, school districts, and authorities and other types of agencies. I've practiced in front of the Erie County Court of Common Pleas, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Superior Court, the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
Thanks, Art. Jen, I'm going to turn to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen from Career Street. Career Street is a program that launched in Erie County to serve the employers and educators in our area to make connections between employers and educators so that students can have career exploration experiences. So I help facilitate coordinating speakers in the classroom, work site tours, and virtual experiences.
Thanks, Jen. And Janet.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet Anderson, and I have had the privilege of working in quasi-governmental positions, primarily in economic and workforce development for more than 30 years. I've also had the opportunity and privilege to work within state and local government itself. I am a graduate of Penn State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting, and have completed several master courses and received many industry recognized credentials in the areas of international development and economic development. I've been fortunate to run for state office and to work for former Governor Tom Ridge and Senator Jane Earl.
Thanks, Janet. And we're going to start right away with you. Okay, so here's my first question for you. Based on the regional data that's in place and your experience, could you please share your insights on employment opportunities, employer needs, and skills that employers are really interested in?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So as you students will learn throughout the presentations today, many adults go into training beyond high school or go into a position and they've not stayed or participated in those occupations either for long or for, if at all. I'm a perfect example of that. But rather use those skills in other areas. So your career is your journey. It includes continuous learning throughout your life and in becoming a subject matter expert, and learning more about yourself and what you really like to do. And that will enable you to advance to more responsibility and therefore more money as you go forward. I mentioned that I have a degree in accounting, and I have never been an accountant. I've used those skills in other ways throughout my career as executive directors and managers in programs. Today, I plan to focus on 3 areas that will help you make your career journey easier. I'll focus on research, exploring to learn more about who you are and what the employers are looking for. So let's start with research. There is data that can help you see what jobs are available right here in Erie County. The Pennsylvania Career Link provides labor market information where you can research the job openings that are available here in Pennsylvania, as well as within Erie County and the Northwest area. These are called the high priority occupations and in-demand occupations. In each of those lists, you will be able to see open positions locally, as well as entry-level wage or salary available for those positions, the wage and salary with experience, and any training that would be required to get into those roles. As this is the human services industry and it is broad, you may find that you're interested in, and you're going to hear from experts here in a few minutes, something like education, becoming an administrator or a teacher in high school, or a special ed teacher, or perhaps a coach or a guidance counselor, and so many more opportunities in education. And there, as I mentioned, there are already several levels, ranging from early childhood to the university level. And then there's government work. And this is where I have focused my career. That may range from, and you're going to hear from some of these, a counselor, a caseworker, a manager of a program, an accountant, an attorney, a maintenance highway worker. And all of these are opportunities right here in Erie County. Supervisors and administrators as well, or something in the area of law, like an attorney, a paralegal, a researcher, or a secretary, all very important to name a few. All of these occupations provide a wide range of pay depending upon your education and experience, ranging from starting levels of around $35,000 to well over $100,000 as you gain experience and move into new exciting opportunities. This is one industry where you are caring for the people. And there are people of all different shapes and sizes and types living in various neighborhoods. You may think that all of these positions are working in an office and behind a cubicle, but you're actually working for the people that you serve. It's an industry where the employers are also willing to help defray the cost of training and education in many cases for the individual that has the right work ethic, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But you're high schoolers. So how do you know what career to look at? Let's start with the fact that you will spend about 25% of your adult life working. So it's important to really like what you do, and you need to know what it is that you like in order to do that. You are in the perfect place in high school to try new things. School offers many chances for you, including Career Street. And Jen spoke briefly about Career Street, but take advantage of that opportunity and others that the school presents to you. Participate in different activities, things like sports or clubs or music, church or other out of school activities like Scouts. You will learn teamwork and how to be a great teammate, as well as leadership and working with diverse people. Take a part-time job or volunteer to see if that industry is what you may like. Employers are happy to have you job shadow and provide mentors. Be flexible with yourself. It's okay not to know right now what you want to do. I thought I wanted to be a tax accountant until I realized what that really meant and the hours from January through April. And I was already 3 years into my education. But again, that knowledge that I gained learning to be an accountant has served me well in every one of my other positions while developing budgets, reading financial statements, helping people with loan applications, just to name a few. Listen to your mentors. And who and what is a mentor? Most of you are thinking your parents are your mentors. These are people that guide you. And while that is true, and your family serves as a great mentor, you have many mentors outside the family. So take a look at your coaches, your friends' parents, your employers, if you have a boss outside of school, guidance counselors, your teachers, your minister, even your neighbors can help guide you into areas to help you determine what it is that you may like. They see you outside the home and in different ways. They may be able to help you hone in on the types of occupations you want to explore while you're still in high school. And don't be afraid to explore. So what are the needs? The third thing, what are the needs of employers? Employers are looking for basic skills. So it's important to do well while you're in school. Things like math, reading, writing, communication, digital literacy. You all have done homeschooling now and zoomed in today. So this is really important. It's a new way of learning and communicating. It's become a really big deal recently. So while you're in school, learn as much as you can about communicating with technology. And I was the one that had trouble this morning or this afternoon getting in. So it happens, and you have to be confident and relax and make sure you get where you need to be. Take advantage of school. Do your best. Even when you don't like the class, it's easy to say, when will I ever use this? But trust me, you will. There are reasons why the teachers and the districts require you to take particular classes. Own your work. It is yours. So if you don't do well, that belongs to you. Figure out how to make that better. And it shows great initiative when you own your work and you work hard. It will definitely separate you from others. Take the opportunity to participate in internships and co-ops. It will force you out of your comfort zone, and you will learn about yourself and those things that you like or don't like. Take advantage of Career Street. This gives you the opportunity to meet with employers, take tours. You can do that virtually or in person now. Ask questions, learn more about the industry and what employees do, what entry-level employees do. Look around and see how many young people are there, and start building your network for the future. That network is more important than you can even imagine right now. And you have a network established, grow it while you're in high school. The more you know about the occupation, the more likely you will be to know that you like it when you get there and be successful. So what employability skills are employers looking for, or do they need? I'm going to start with the right attitude. Employers are looking for individuals that are willing to learn. They're looking for initiative, trying new things, willing to speak out with better ways of doing things. Don't be afraid to say, this is, I found a better way. But it's how you communicate that matters. Creative thinkers. They like individuals that think creatively, have a work ethic. That means showing up to work on time every day, and staying until the end of the day. Individuals that are honest and have integrity. Individuals that are flexible if something changes, and we've seen a lot of change in the last few years, being willing to accept that change and take that on. Individuals or employees that are risk takers, willing to step out on a limb and try something new. Employers can and are willing to help train technical skills. So don't think you have to bring it all. It's important to come with that right attitude so that you can learn, and then show the employer that you have that. Some positions will require education and training, and you're going to hear from the experts here in a minute. But don't be afraid to accept a lower level position and grow within the company. Form a partnership with the employer, and they'll help you finish the education as long as you bring the right attitude. And two things that are really important, but not necessarily something you're all thinking about: financial literacy, knowing how to ensure that you are not overextended, will help you become successful at home and at work. And a work-life balance. It's important to understand that if you have a family and even friends outside of work, that you maintain a work-life balance so that you maintain your mental and physical health, and that both of those things will help you to be a better employee. And that's all I have today, Mary. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Janet, that was great. Thank you so much. That laid some really good groundwork and gave the students some really great advice. So thank you for that. So now I'm going to turn to the panelists to start with our panelist questions. First question that we have is going to be for John DiMatteo. And John, you're the director of the Erie County Department of Human Services. You touched on this a little bit in your intro, but can you talk about the kinds of jobs that are available in your department? What kind of education is required to get a job at the Erie County Department of Human Services? And if there are any jobs that are in really high demand there, what might some of those jobs be?
So the education question is interesting. Really anything from a high school diploma through a master's degree, depending on the position. And so I checked this morning, we have 38 open positions here at Erie County Department of Human Services in varying roles. Anything from a clerk typist, which would really be sort of a secretarial position, administrative officers, OCY caseworkers, Office of Children and Youth case aides. Case aide would be somebody who would provide transportation to children, to appointments and so forth. Drug and alcohol case managers, and Leslie's going to talk about that, so I won't talk much about that. Those roles, if you wanted to really come in at an entry level, those would be high school diploma positions. Depending on some of the caseworker positions, you would have to have a bachelor's degree. The others that we have open, some of the higher level positions, a master's degree would be required depending upon the position. So we really have something for everyone. Those positions that I mentioned today are most in the highest demand at all times. Office of Children and Youth caseworker is the one that we most often have open. It's because we have the most of those positions. We have over 140 people who might fall into a category of caseworker or casework supervisor within our 310 positions. So that is the number one, and actually the people who support them. So those administrative assistants and people, that is the number two position that we have the toughest time filling. So the education really, I tell people to come in with an open mind. I know Janet had mentioned being able to think about joining an organization at a lower level just to get your foot in the door and be able to move up. That is something that many people here have been able to do. I mentioned in the beginning, I've held 5 different positions here at the county, and 4 of them would be considered a promotion to get to the level that I'm at now. So we have many people who have been able to do that.
Okay, yep. So that sort of leads into my second question. If you come in as an entry-level person, are there opportunities to advance to higher positions within the county? And what does it take to be able to do that?
Absolutely, you can do that. And I was thinking about a conversation I just had this morning with some of our diversity, equity, and inclusion team members here at the county. And we were talking about, can somebody come in and start at an entry level? I gave them 2 examples of people who work directly in our department who came in. One person came in as a receptionist, and within 5 years, that person is a senior manager here. And
Wow.
so that is an extraordinary example of something that can happen. It doesn't happen for everyone. It happens to someone who has really an open mind, maybe a skill level and a skill set. This person, one of the people is really a great data person, and he's self-taught. So it's not somebody who came in with a pre-existing skill, but it's somebody who saw an opportunity here and was able to get some education on their own and bring it back to the organization and be able to move up through the organization fairly quickly. So within 5 years, we're looking at somebody who probably jumped 7 or 8 levels within an organization within a 5-year period. Another person, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, that's pretty amazing. I was going to say, you know, somebody who's dedicated to continual learning and willing to advance their skills. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there.
There is, and one of the others was really someone who started off as an administrative assistant who is running our human services, human resource department. So we have a small department of staff there. Somebody who came in, again, within a short period of time, was able to move through our organization and really jump maybe 4 levels within a few years' time. So it is possible. It's people who took a chance, learned about our organization, and because we're a fairly large organization, there are those abilities to move with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So what are some of the qualities you look for or things that students can do that would give them a leg up to be considered for a position within your department? So our organization, the Human Services Department, is slightly different than the rest of the county. So we are in a process that's called merit hire. So everyone, and the reason we're in that is because the majority of money that pay for our programs comes from the state and federal government. And so we were in a civil service process. The merit hire is really just a local version of that. So it's for Erie County only, but people have to take a test for any of our positions at any level. People have to test for those positions, whether it's a time typing test or it's an essay test on how you would handle a particular situation at the high level management. So everyone is tested, so it's equal and it's fair to every applicant. So part of that, I guess, for some people is know what your skills are, read what the job postings say, and if you have those types of skills, you can ask, will my experience count for something instead of the education? And sometimes that can happen. So we'd encourage people, if you have any interest, to continue to look at our job postings on our website. As I said, we have 38 of them today. So there are opportunities at the entry level as people are thinking about graduation. But some things that are important to us, people who are open, honest, people who care about their appearance, people who think about what they post on social media. That's something that we deal with quite often. Social media offers a lot of opportunity for people to express their opinions, but you need to know that it lasts forever. And it is important, especially when you deal with people, to be cognizant of that. So those are some of the things that tell people to think about, and be open to learning. There is so much to learn within the organization. I told you I've been here a really long time. I worked at an intellectual disability provider for 14 years before I worked here at the county. So I've been working in this field for almost 37 years, and I don't know everything. But what I do know is I have a lot of good people who are on our team who do know the answers to those things. And almost always they're willing to share those answers with you to help you grow. So come in with an open mind and an open ability to learn from the others that you work with. I do it every day, and it's why I think we're a great place to work. That's a great piece of advice there. I do have one additional question for you, John, from the audience, and it's, you mentioned that you help fund and support human service providers in the county. Could you name some examples of providers that you support?
Of course. So on the intellectual disabilities side, the Gertrude Barber National Institute, Erie Homes for Children and Adults, Achievement Center, Safe Harbor, Stairways. On the drug and alcohol side, Gadenzia. Trying to think of who else on the people might know that are some of the larger providers within the community, but those are some to name a few.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And that looks like all the questions that we have for you right now, John. Thank you for that. We're going to move into Leslie now. And Leslie, here's the first question that we have for you. You are a case manager with the Erie County Office of Drug and Alcohol. What is a case manager and what does your job entail?
Okay, a case manager is an individual who assesses the clients and link them to services and resources. We're more of a facilitator than a provider. And we determine the client's history and his funding, his traumatic background, mental health status. We conduct a recovery plan to determine his needs, such as physical, mental health, legal status, education, life skills, social, and employment. Also, we focus on our priority populations, who are IV drug users, opioid use disorder, overdose victims, veterans, and pregnant women. Also, we also represent agencies in the private sector, such as education sessions, such as I have conducted the Vet Expo, the GCAC Senior Expo, and the WHO program, which is a warm handoff through Gadenzia and Safe Harbor.
So I'm going to, for my own benefit, I'm going to try to simplify that a little bit. So
Okay.
you see the clients when they come in,
Correct.
and you assess them, and then you make referrals to them based on services that you find they need based on that assessment you do. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so then, so when you're dealing with the general public who has some of the issues that you talked about, IV drug users, alcohol issues, those kinds of things, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in that regard? And what are some of the most rewarding aspects of your job?
I would say some of the most challenging is to place the client into the level of care that they need and to follow up with that person and to make sure that they're meeting their recovery goals and that they have long-term sobriety.
So how do you know where to refer them? Do you have a big list of programs that you work with, or how does that work?
Well, yes, we do have programs, but we base it on geographics, like where that person might live and what that place might offer, like Stairways and Safe Harbor specialize in mental health. That's what we usually determine it on, is the client's needs.
Okay, all right, very good. So this is a little bit of a different question, but what made you decide to pursue a job within county government instead of working for a private company or a nonprofit organization? And how does working for government differ from those other kinds of organizations?
Well, I would say, I'm also a veteran of the Air Force, Air National Guard, and Army Reserve. So I would say camaraderie, one thing. It's very important that we all work together as a team. And I would say all of us have been affected by addiction in one way or another. Either we know somebody or a family member. And I just think it's very important that we get those clients the help that they need.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience for you related to what you just said.
Okay.
Do you think your experience in the military has helped you in your current role?
Absolutely, I do. Yes, I do, because it learns you how to respect each other's wishes and to work together as a team. And like you said, Janet said, it's important to be on time every day and have morals and just a good work attitude. And that's what the military did for me.
Great. Thank you. Trying to see if we have any other questions from the audience. We do not right now. So thank you, Leslie. That was great. And I'm going to turn to now Attorney Martinucci. So Art, first question for you. You are an attorney and a shareholder or a partner with the Quinn Law Firm. To become an attorney, how many years of schooling after high school are required? Do you have to major in anything specific in college? Are there special tests you have to take either to get into law school or to practice law when you graduate? What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the simple thing is that you generally have between 6 to 7 years of education after you graduate from high school in order to become an attorney. The traditional path is a 4-year undergraduate degree and then acceptance into a 3-year program at a law school. There are some universities and colleges that are offering an accelerated program now where you can do the 4 years at their undergraduate program and then trim off a year and do a 2-year program for your law degree, what's called the Juris Doctor. Those are still pretty new programs. There aren't a whole lot of them out there. So the traditional expectation would be a minimum of 7 years of education after you graduate from high school. And even as far back as when I went to law school, which seems impossibly long ago now, but even back then, there were a number of people that I went to school with who had already gone out and had either multiple undergraduate degrees or had undergraduate and graduate, sometimes even doctoral degrees before they started on their path to law school. So plan on 6 years minimum, and it could be a lot longer.
Okay.
With regard to testing, generally you do have to take the law school admissions test or the LSATs. That's something a lot like the SATs in terms of testing aptitude, logic, comprehension, skills, and things of that nature. It's not a law-specific test. So there are review courses that you can take for the LSATs. I didn't take any. But it's not something that you have to go in knowing, constitutional law or understanding any particular cases in order to take the LSATs. It's just like the GREs and other graduate school exams. In order to practice law, you have to take the bar exam, and that is a state-specific exam. There are some states that will, if you do well enough on your state's test, allow you to waive into their jurisdiction as well. But pretty much it is a state-specific exam. Used to be a 2-day exam, now it's a 3-day exam. So that's 3 full days of testing. The first day is typically ethics and professionalism. And then the next 2 days are essays and what they call the multi-state, which is a multiple choice examination. You these days have to pass the ethics portion of the test. You also have to pass the multi-state. There are some jurisdictions that will let you just pass the multi-state, and if you get a high enough score, they won't pay too much attention to your essays. But again, that's changing a lot since the days when I took the test. And nowadays they're weighting things a little bit differently. So plan on doing well on all 3 aspects of the test if you want to practice law. There's also an application process that you have to go through in order to get permission to take the bar exam in your state. And they look at things like criminal backgrounds as well as education and things like that. And there are a number of factors that can disqualify somebody from holding a license to practice law. Once you get into the practice, you've got to do continuing legal education. And again, that varies from state to state. In Pennsylvania, we have to have a minimum of 12 CLE credits every year.
So Art, what are some of the things that would prohibit you from practicing law?
Well, it could be something as innocuous as driving under the influence charge. So, major crimes and things like that certainly would keep somebody from being allowed to take the bar exam in a lot of instances. But it could be something as straightforward as a DUI or a possession charge. So those are things that you want to be very, very careful about in your high school and college careers, because you might think, well, it's just a little mistake, but that little mistake has long-term consequences if you want to have a career as a professional, certainly in the law.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is sort of a multi-part question. Again, you're getting a lot of these, but it seems like there are a lot of different kinds of attorneys. And what are some examples of that? And how does somebody sort of sift through the opportunities and think about what kind of law they want to practice? So that's the first part. And then I know there are lots of other kinds of careers that support the legal field that are also in high demand. And I was wondering if you could maybe share some of those.
Sure. So the first thing, I'm gonna hop back to the first question, because there was one part of that I know I didn't answer. And
Okay.
it kind of feeds into the second question with regard to the types of lawyer and things like that.
Okay.
So you don't have to take a particular course of study in college in order to get into law school. Just like you don't have to know the law to take the LSATs, you don't have to be a pre-law major in order to go into law school. I was, as Mary knows, because we went to college together, I was a dual major at Allegheny. I was a history and English major, and my emphasis was on Renaissance and medieval studies. And I'm now a civil rights litigator. So I didn't have to go and study constitutional law in order to practice constitutional law. And what I would tell people is that when you go to college, you should major in something that you have a real interest in, maybe even per se a passion for, something that is going to keep you engaged and motivated, something that's going to help you get the grades that you're going to need to get into law school, that's going to keep your interest and your attention throughout those 4 years in undergrad. That can steer you in particular directions in the law. If you want to be a tax attorney, then maybe you're going to study finance and accounting in undergrad, and maybe you're going to get your qualification as a certified public accountant before or during the time when you're in law school, which requires additional testing and all that fun stuff. But that's the type of person who can be a tax attorney. I could never have been a tax attorney. I have friends and colleagues who do that type of work, and they're great people, and I really respect what they can do, but that's not me. I do a much better job, I think, communicating with people, and that's what I think steered me into the litigation area. I say communicating, some people would say arguing, but that's what drove me in that particular direction. So you can be a tax lawyer, you can be a litigator and cover a whole host of areas. You can concentrate in different areas and be a litigator, but focus on employment law or labor law or personal injury law. And none of those things require you to have a particular undergraduate degree, all right? But some degrees will help you more than others. So keep that in mind as you move into that area. You can study things that will help guide you along your way, but they are not going to determine the path that you take. I will say briefly that in my first year of practice, based on a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for here? A lot of the not mandatory courses that I took in law school. There's some things you have to take. Everybody takes criminal law. Everybody takes property law. Everybody takes contracts. Everybody takes torts, which are personal injury types of claims and things like that. We all take the basics, civil procedure, criminal procedure. But after that, you can branch out into different areas in law school. So explore your opportunities there. And the pathway that I took academically in law school, you would think that I was going to be a corporate attorney because those were the types of courses that I took. And it was about a year into practice, and some of the senior shareholders at that point in time sat me down and asked me where I thought I saw my career heading and what area of the firm I thought I was going to end up in. And I gave them my thoughts, and I told them, I'd really like to get into this transactional work. I think this is kind of along the path that I was studying for. And they looked at me and they said, well, we've been looking at you for the past 6-8 months now. And frankly, we think that you're better suited for litigation. So they helped steer me. Talk about mentoring. Janet talked about mentoring. They steered me in this direction. And quite frankly, I think that I would have gone nuts if I had just been a transactional attorney at this point in time, because I really enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy being in court. I enjoy arguing cases. I enjoy doing cross-examinations and taking depositions and things like that. It's a challenge. It's always something new and exciting. And it allows me to use my my more argumentative talents in a positive fashion. So again, you don't feel pigeonholed that you have to go into pre-law. You can do it if that's really what you really want to do, but you don't have to be pre-law. You don't have to be political science. There's a whole range of things out there, and as long as you know what you want to do, you're going to be able to find your path forward. Briefly on the other, and I don't want to shortchange this at all. I cannot tell you from my perspective, not only as somebody who's been practicing law for 30 years, been a shareholder here for 20 years, and currently in the president of the firm, how important to the proper function of a law firm staff are. Administrative assistants, paralegals, billing and accounting folks, they are absolutely critical, and they are in short supply. If you are somebody who thinks that you might like an office setting, a professional office setting, but you don't think that you want to go to law school, that's okay. You can still end up in a law office. And if you've got good computer skills, if you've got good reading and comprehension, if you've got a lot of attention to detail, you're good in communicating and interacting with people, we probably have a spot that we can find for you. And again, we've got great staff here now, but they're aging out, right? You don't want to be crass about it, but there are a number of people here who they were administrative assistants when I started off as an associate, and they're just now retiring. And it's tough to backfill people with the skill level that those folks had. There's always going to be a learning curve, but these days it seems very, very difficult to find folks who are willing to enter into those roles, and not something in the law office, but something outside of, but supporting law practice. Court reporters these days, there's an absolute shortage of court reporters and stenographers these days. People are desperate for them, and it's getting tougher and tougher to do things like schedule hearings, schedule depositions, and things like that. So there's a whole range of occupations that go into supporting the legal practice, everything from law enforcement to case managers and drug and alcohol, to personal assistants, to the attorneys themselves and paralegals. There are a lot of career opportunities in this field.
Hey, I'm interested in the paralegal a little more specifically. So how does a paralegal differ from an attorney? What kind of things does a paralegal do?
Well, so paralegals do a lot of the background work in cases, not so much the research and writing, though in some firms, different firms use paralegals differently. There are some firms, especially smaller outfits, where maybe you don't want to hire an associate, but you get a good paralegal who can do research and things like that. That individual may fill the role of an associate attorney, but paralegals aren't allowed to sign off on pleadings. Paralegals aren't allowed to formally give legal advice. They can't go to court and things like that. They can't handle the real estate closing itself. All that has to be done by the attorney. But a paralegal can do a lot of research and writing, can fill kind of a hybrid role in between a personal assistant and an associate. If you have somebody in the domestic relations field, now it's not an area that I practice in, but we have paralegals there who are so familiar with the law and the calculations that need to be done for support and the forms that need to be filled out for custody issues and things like that. They can pretty much do everything but go to court. They can't take a deposition or things like that. They can't go in front of the master or in front of the judge, but they can get everything together, hand the file to the attorney, and with just a little bit of review, the attorney's going to be ready to go into court and do the things that the attorney does. For real estate, the real estate paralegals, again, very, very short supply right now. They have to do all the background work before we can go to a closing. So they put together the HUD-1 forms, the financing statements and things like that. They're the ones generally in communication with the bank, with the real estate agents, with the clients, getting everything set up. So again, they can hand a packet of information to the attorney a day or two before, and the attorney can go into the closing and actually handle the transaction. Litigation, they do a lot of support work there, organizing files, reviewing medical records, reviewing criminal records, filling out paperwork, all things that support the attorney and allow the attorney to be more productive and effective in their job without having to do a lot of the background stuff.
And the difference in the amount of education required by a paralegal and an attorney?
There are associate degrees available for paralegals. Okay. And again, you might, depending on what area you go into, you might want to look for something beyond the general, right? You can go and get a general paralegal degree, and that will certainly boost your chances of getting into a law office, but you might start off as a personal assistant or an administrative assistant before you transition into a paralegal role, because they'll want you to get a little bit more used to the environment, used to the terminology and the overall practice before they hand things off to you. So there might be other programs out there where you can get the either paralegal certificate or get an associate's degree, and then go on and say, well, I want to be a real estate paralegal, find some additional certifications or coursework that's available to help you get into that area, because that's incredibly technical, especially since the changes after the 2008 real estate crash. They've really ramped up a lot of the technical requirements and filing requirements there. So it's a very, very specialized area, requires more than just a general associate's degree. But
Okay.
again, it's a lot shorter path and a lot more affordable path than, say, going to be an attorney. Now, you're not going to make the money that an attorney will make at the end of the day, but by the same token, you're also not going to bear the risk and the cost that the attorney has getting to where they are.
Gotcha. All right, Art, thank you. That was really great information. Really good. Thank you. So Karen, I'm going to turn to you now. And our first question for you, and we have a couple from the audience also. But I'm going to pose a couple questions to you from us first. You hold two different types of positions in education. First, you're the head of Erie Day School, serving students in pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. And second, you're a college professor, serving students who graduated from high school and even adults who want to further their education. How are these two positions similar, and how are they different? And you're muted.
Well, it's similar in the ways in which you would imagine with relationship to teachers and students. So here at Erie Day School, I'm working with over 30 really talented teachers that are in classrooms working with young students. They love their work that they're doing. They really have a commitment to student success, and they are using lots of creativity to encourage their children to do all kinds of wonderful things every day. And that's similar to what I'm doing at the university level. I'm encouraging young people like you to work hard to grow into those classroom roles, to be able to work with students and facilitate their successes and challenges and struggles and failures as well, and really to turn those around into everything you'd want them to grow into. So for me, it's such a similar position, even though I'm sort of changing hats as I leave one school and enter the next. In so many ways, I feel as though it's been such a lifelong journey to really inspire people to do well for children in our community.
Okay, thank you. Now, we have a question from the audience that's a little bit related to that. Just when you're talking about the teachers, the question is, how many years of college does it take to become a science teacher, for example?
Sure. So science in particular is one that if you have a passion or just even an interest, or maybe you've had a science teacher or a science class that really stimulated some interest for you, or you couldn't wait to get to in your school day, I would encourage you to really think hard about the opportunity to become a science teacher. We are always, all of us in education, looking for teachers of science. In fact, the state of Pennsylvania last year graduated one physics teacher. So there is such a remarkable shortage for teachers in the state, in this country. And if you haven't been hearing about that somewhere in the news or among, your teachers in your own school, please know that we are really looking for young people like yourselves to just sort of realize that interest you have in children, or even kids your own age, and really take that idea into a step further into whether it's a subject area like science teaching or mathematics teaching or English, and to take that a step further into the classrooms. To become a science teacher, you would graduate from high school. Some school districts offer some experiences during the senior year to work with young children. If your school district has those opportunities, I would really encourage you to look into that. Even if you want to be a science teacher in the high school, it's really nice sometimes just to test the waters in that young children's elementary center that may exist, or some sort of, babysitting experience that you might be able to have in your neighborhood or for a family member. So to go into science education beyond that high school experience and entry into college, you would likely have 3 to 4 years. Some people work through the summers in their college classes, and if that's the case, you can graduate in as soon as 3 years. But otherwise, it's a typical 4-year program. And much of it is what you would think it would be. A lot of time is spent in the classroom, and then other opportunities are given to you to go out into schools and try on that classroom experience to see if this is really what you want to become. And not only the student teaching experience, some of you might have had student teachers that you are familiar with, but you might have had a field student come into your classroom too, where they don't do as much teaching, but there's a lot of observation and a lot of one-on-one support that are offered to students. But again, science, STEM, when I look at Edinburgh University and the offerings they have, there's not only that middle and secondary educational degree offered to students that want to become science teachers, math teachers, physics, chemistry, anything of that nature. There's also the LED experience in the pre-K as well. We also have a deaf ed focus now too, which is another big field of education that is in dire need of teachers. There are a lot of students across our state and our country that need teachers that know how to sign and that are learning well to provide for students that have learning differences, including deaf ed.
So that goes into a second question we got from the audience. If you know what you want to do, but how can you learn more about that program? So if you have an interest in, let's say a science teacher, or if you have an interest in, other kinds of things, how can you figure out what a college or university has to offer that you might be able to pursue?
I'm glad you asked that. Shaylin, I see, is really interested in cosmetology, and there are all kinds of schools in the Erie area that really cater to specific specialized fields. And so, for example, when I think of cosmetology, I can't help but think of the Erie County Technical School. And there's also private schools such as, I think, if I'm pronouncing it right, Noe Noonan, it's in Fairview, and there's Tony and Guy up by the mall. There are alternative schools from that college setting. And so we also have our community colleges that are working with students in a shorter time frame, and they are growing early childhood educators. So, and they're also certifying them. So there's a lot of different opportunities in this area that have not been always here. And for those of you that like the urban settings, there's Gannon University and Mercyhurst University, and those of you that may, be in an opportunity to travel a little bit. Edinburgh's campus is just 20 minutes away. And all of these technical schools are within a quick bus drive, a quick, bike ride for many of you, and a quick jaunt in your car as well.
Thank you. Okay. So the second question that we had for you are that there are lots of different career opportunities in the education field. You can become a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, support staff, and you can do it at the elementary, middle, or high school level or college level. How can someone figure out what education-related career options there are and narrow down their interests?
So, for all of you that are digital natives, right? You've grown up in this time and place where you can jump on Google and search anything. I would encourage you not just to go into Google to search that career path that you would like. I would encourage you to actually go to the college websites that are here in this area, if that's where you think you might like to go. Enter in at an Edinburgh University, and then from there search, undergraduate degrees, or go to Mercyhurst University, click on their URLs, see what kind of degrees they offer. I had someone recently tell me that when she was a senior in high school, she earned a scholarship to one of the local universities, and she had no idea what she wanted to study. She just knew that she had to go to college because that was what her parents told her she had to do. And so she went onto the school's website and she looked through the list, and there was only one of the degrees that they offered that interested her. And so she applied into that program and she was accepted. But 4 years in, she realized that she wished she would have gone into something entirely different. So what I would encourage you to do is not only go into those websites, check out the programs that they offer, but if you decide to go to college and your first year, take advantage of classes in that major that you think you're going to go into, to make sure that you love those classes, that you can't wait to get up in the morning and go into those classrooms to learn more about whatever it is you're learning about. If it's not something that you love and are inspired by and can't wait to take into the workforce, then you likely need to change majors. And I think that too often university students just sort of get stuck in a track and they don't know how to get off. And so, I think it's more important than ever that all of you as young people realize you can be anything, you can do anything, and you just need to know when to get off the track and enter a new train car. And sometimes those mentors and those adults in your life are really going to help guide those conversations with you. And more than likely, you hope it's going to be the teachers in the classrooms too.
Jen, is there anything you want to add about Career Street opportunities that kids could pursue in that regard?
Well, I would say that Career Street is accessible through your guidance counselors and your educators. So if you have a relationship with your guidance counselor or a specific teacher, I think talking to them about doing some research and learning about some different careers. We do have connections in the community in all areas of careers. We have all the industries covered. So if you have a curiosity and would like to learn more, through your guidance counselor, you can access the Career Street website and maybe do a couple of career interviews and talk to people that are really in that role and be able to have a frank conversation, ask them what their day-to-day is like and kind of apply that to yourself and think about whether that's something that would work for you or whether you want to continue your research.
Thank you. Okay, Karen, one last question for you then. What do you like most about being an educator? And is there a story you can point to that made you stop and say, yep, I'm really glad I chose this career path?
I think teaching is one of the most rewarding professions there are. There isn't a day that goes by where I'm not inspired by my children here at the day school or my college students on the campus. There are little fires that are lit every day, and not necessarily by me, but by my teachers that I am able to witness. And, I think for me personally, when I first read a story aloud to children in a classroom, I realized the expressions on their faces, the giggles that I heard, it was a complete latch for me in terms of this is what I want to do. I really want to inspire children to love that reading experience. But for all of you, you're going to find that little aha moment at some point in your life. And hopefully it's sooner than later. And listen to that. Don't ignore it. Don't think, you know what, teachers don't make enough money. There's often lots of different things that you hear about different professions. Social workers don't make anything. I mean, there are connotations that are made too often to careers. I'm the first to explain to you, teachers make enough money. They make good money. Social workers, they have a hardworking job, but they love every second of it. And they can't wait to come back to the office again the next day. So there is this idea that is too often applied to teaching, but to any career that is related to salary. I mean, teaching still has your summers off. There's a lot of perks there too. So, open your ears and minds to whatever it is that you want to grow into becoming, and don't let other adults that are just sort of worn out in their career choice try to persuade you to do something differently than what your heart is calling you to do.
Okay, thanks, Karen. All right, so we have one last question for all of you, and just, really want your best thoughts about this. If you could leave students with one last piece of advice about pursuing a career in the human services career pathway, what would that be? And Art, I'm going to ask you first.
Say that one more time, Mary. I was actually looking at a question from Holly about what my favorite part of the day-to-day activities of an attorney was.
Okay. All right. Well, you want to share that, and then I'll come back.
Sure, I'll respond to that real quickly.
Okay.
And I think that the favorite part is dealing with people, whether it's the other attorneys here at the office, attorneys outside of the office, our staff, our clients. It's interacting with people, and that's, I think, the best thing for me day to day.
Okay, so now you get a minute to think about this one. So here's the question again. If you could leave students with one last piece of advice about pursuing a career in the human services career pathway, what would that be? John.
Didn't know you were going to call me next, but stay on your toes. No, the one thing I'd leave you with is that I think Janet said this earlier, no matter what you think or what you're going to study in school, there's probably a piece of that in the human services. So what I mean by that is that I talked about some of the agencies earlier that we contract with, or even our own agency here as the Department of Human Services. When I start adding up the number of jobs and positions, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,500 jobs in Erie County that exist every day. And those include people who are accountants. Those include people who are administrative assistants. So it's not just the helping professions that you might think of when you think about human services. So when I got into this field, I didn't really choose human services. It chose me. I ended up here by accident. So I'd say keep an open mind. I was in school for business. I wasn't in school for psychology or special education or anything. And I took a summer job and I'm still here. So, and you can look at me, I'm old. So I've been doing this a long time. So it picks you sometimes. And I think, Karen, that's what you were getting at when you were talking about finding that aha moment or something that makes you excited about doing what you do. I don't think any of us do the things that we do here because just for the paycheck. We do it because we like it and we want to help. So sometimes keep an open mind. I guess that would be my piece of advice. And don't write off human services because you say, oh, I'm not really a people person, because there's all kinds of support work that goes along here too.
Very good. Thank you. Karen, how about you?
So I want to answer this twofold, if that's okay. The quote I heard a long time ago that always stuck with me, and likely many of you heard this as well. If you find a job you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that is so true. For those of you that go into careers that you just enjoy, you will never feel like you are going to work, as you see some people do. So I hope you find that job. The other piece, for those of you that are going to stay in Erie, there is so much connectivity in this community that can really serve you well. So stay connected, reach out, be kind to people, spread your joy among, everyone that you know, and that will come back to you. Most of us in this room know one another from some other way. It wasn't necessarily through a career, but if we did meet through a career, it was a link that we made to bring us to these boxes today. So just really be thoughtful about that connectivity in the way that you treat people, obviously, but also in finding that job that you love to do. I hope that really comes your way.
Thank you, Karen. Leslie, how about you?
Well, I could say I relate to John because I started my career path in social services in later years as well. I went to college later. And I was told by people that social workers don't make any money. But I didn't get into that career field to make money because I knew I wasn't going to get rich off of it. But I feel good about helping my clients, and particularly in the field that I am in, because like I said, it's a population that really needs help, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. We need the funding, we need the people to help the population that I work for.
Yep, great. Thank you, Leslie. Jen, do you have anything you want to add?
I would just say to really continue to do your best. Do your best as you're doing your career research, do your best as you're interacting with your classmates, your peers, do your best when you're doing the work in school. And if you're always giving your best self, you're going to continue to rise up. And that's what you want to do. You want to show your best self in your career. And you'll find that by giving yourself the time to research and learning and making those connections.
Thanks, Jen. Art, I'm back to you.
See, this was actually my secret plan so I could go last, right? No.
Nice work.
Honestly, I think that part of the answer I gave to Holly's question is something that I would have said in response to this one as well. But overall, I think that what we need to do is take a look at what we're talking about here. We're talking about human services, right? So no matter what our jobs are, at the end of the day, what we want to be doing is helping people. And whether we're doing that for a group, a classroom, or we're doing it one-on-one and counseling a drug and alcohol client, or if I'm talking to one of my clients, and when we're doing things on a small scale or a large scale, we are trying to focus our efforts on helping people. And that's really what human services is all about. We have these opportunities there for folks in terms of career paths and choices. And I think that if you've got that drive to help people in one way or another, then a human services career might be a good idea for you. It doesn't need to be something where you're an extreme extrovert like me, or somebody who just wants to deal with folks one-on-one. We can still help people in our own way. The other thing I will say is that for a human services type of job, if you're going to get into it, you should recognize that there are very, very few positions in this field that are truly just 9 to 5 and 5 days a week. People, especially if you get into my field, people are going to pepper you with questions on social media. They're going to pepper you with questions at cocktail parties, at dinners, when you're walking down the street. Folks that you've met in grade school are going to reach out to you and say, hey, I've got a legal question. You might have, if you're a drug and alcohol counselor, you're going to have folks who need your attention and your care more than just from 9 to 5. So you can't just shut it off at that point in time. Those are normal business hours, sure, but you will find that you're called upon to do things outside of that range. And that's one of the challenges of the human services industry, but I think it's also one of the rewarding things about the human services industry is that people need you, right? And when you do your job well, people are going to be better off for having known you and having dealt with you. And that, I think, is an incredibly incredibly worthwhile and rewarding aspect of all of this, even more so than any financial compensation.
Thanks, Art. And Janet, any last piece of advice from you?
I would simply say, eat off the buffet while you're in school. Take every opportunity to try things to determine what it is that you really are passionate about. And listen to the people around you as they see you growing and learning. They will have great advice to guide you. Take advantage of Career Street. Again, for those same reasons, it's there, it's free. You really, if you want to live the life that Karen spoke about, where you'll never work a day in your life, you really need to know what you're passionate about. So take the time now to do that.
Thank you. And thanks everyone so much. That's it. That concludes today's session. You all were great. We appreciate the questions that came from the audience. Thanks to the schools and the students that attended. We're wrapped up and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.